Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time it's a Tom Baker story and I'm continuing the Key to Time season. It's The Power of Kroll. As always, I have in front of me the television companion, so let's have a look at the plot synopsis for this story. The TARDIS arrives in the marshes of the third moon of the planet Delta Magna. While trying to get an accurate reading on the tracer, the Doctor is shot by Thorne and Fenner, two men from a nearby methane refinery. Romana is meanwhile taken prisoner by the green-skinned natives, the Swampies, who decide to sacrifice her to their god Kroll as a prelude to an attack on the refinery. A man named Rondut is running guns to the Swampies ostensibly on behalf of an anti-colonial organisation sympathetic to their cause. This, however, is part of a plot by Thorne to have the Swampies wiped out. The Doctor arrives at the Swampies' temple just in time to rescue his companion. The refinery crew notice that the lake bed is shifting, as if there's something moving beneath it. The Swampies, led by Ranquin, prepare their attack, but are stopped in their tracks when Kroll, an enormous squid-like creature, appears on the horizon. Kroll starts to assail them, while the Doctor, Romana and Romdut are captured by the Swampies and sentenced to death. The Doctor and Romana manage to escape, but Romdut is seized and killed by one of Kroll's tentacles. The two Time Lords reach the refinery, where they learn that Thorne is planning to destroy Kroll by blasting it with a rocket. The Doctor disables the rocket, and Thorne is slain by the Swampies as they launch their attack. Kroll then returns, but the Doctor, realising that it's ingested the fifth segment, disguised as a Swampy relic, uses the tracer to end its threat. The segment is converted, and in place of the giant Kroll, there are countless smaller creatures left lying in the marshes. So this is the fifth story of the Key to Time season, starring Tom Baker as the Doctor and Mary Tamm as Romana. Initial thoughts: the location stuff is good. The story itself is a bit threadbare, and the studio stuff is very basic budgetary elements coming into it. And it's not the best story I've seen of the Key to Time season, so there is that. I'll come back to some of the bits I like and don't like in a minute. Let's go through all the characters and the actors who play them, as we normally do. So we start off with the Doctor, played by Tom Baker. Continuation of the Doctor we've seen over the season. Very jovial, little quips here and there. Where's the tea and jam quote, which is one interesting one. There's also the element here of the fact the Doctor is, I suppose, he's more purview to events than anything else. He's may have figured out rather quickly the situation about where the segment is for the Key to Time, which has really kept rather quiet for most of it. They've gone from having a major plot point of the elements of the Key to Time, the segments, to something that's just like a second part of the story. It's just a linking thread as time's gone on. That changes in Armageddon Factor, which we'll come to next week, because obviously it's the climax. But at the moment, it's very much just the Doctor and Romana having fun, and the relationship between him and Romana is very fun. Tom Baker is jovial, as comedic, as flippant and bohemian as he always has been. It's certainly the pomp of the comedic side of Tom Baker, and there's certainly quips being made. You don't see so much of the feigning idiocy tropes that Tom Baker's done maybe in the past couple of stories, because he hasn't got anything to bounce off of here. He's more the slight authoritarian side that the Tom Baker's Doctor has, the more proud and intelligent one. The only real conversation he has really is the bit when he first gets captured by the men of the refinery, and he has the conversation about the technology that they're using is very basic. He's a time traveller, he has obviously seen the future technology that the Earth colonists have used, and this is certainly a basic setting of it, and he puts that suggestion to some of the refining men to improve on their technology, which is interesting in itself. Apart from that, it's a very basic Tom Baker. It's Tom Baker that everybody would recognise. It's very enjoyable. It's fun. He doesn't get boring. He doesn't seem to be bored in this one. He just seems to be enjoying going through the motions. There are some stories where Tom Baker looks like he's really going through the motions with this. This one isn't. It definitely is one where he seems to be enjoying it a lot more. It comes through in the performance. It's really quite a strong performance. What's also a strong performance is Mary Tamm. She's a little bit more Perils of Pauline this time. She does seem to be the damsel in distress part of the role, but it's not too bad. It's certainly still a strength in there with the feminist side that she has, but she's really more asking questions in this one than actually taking any major part in it like she was Androids of Tara and Stones of Blood. She's more She's more akin to events and being drifted along with them a bit more in this one, which is a bit disappointing. But Mary Tamm always acts quite strongly in this, and she's doing a good job here as well. I mean, you can't really fault the acting style of what she's got. And it's kind of a come down a little bit from the fact that she had multiple roles in Android Satara that she could get her teeth into, and this one she really doesn't. If you want to see two stories where there's a bit of a comparison, this is it, really. You've then got the guest cast. You've got Thorn, played by Neil McCartney. Now there is an understanding that this should have gone to another actor who was offered to another actor who's in this story, but Neil McCarthy was the first choice for this. He plays it with quite a businessman who's trying to get a job done. And you don't really see the planning that he has behind this whole thing of subjugating the Swampies and getting rid of the Swampies that he has with the whole Rommed Out Gunrunner stuff. But there's obviously some sort of profit motive there. There's some sort of business motive there. That's really the enemy side of it this week. It's more greed than anything else. It's nicely played for what the content is, but Thorn doesn't really come across as the big bad. There is a plan there, but it's not really strong what exactly where that plan is or who it's for. So that's interesting in itself. I think the best of the guest cast is actually Fenner, which is Philip Maddock. Now, Fenner was supposed to be offered Thorn, and he thought that's who he was playing. He only came into the script because Alan Browning, who originally was cast as Fenner, fell ill. Philip Maddock is good when Doctor Who when he gets a juicy part, and that's proved in The Brain of Morbius and The War Games. This is more like a Croton's appearance. It's not a very good script. It is a Robert Holmes script, which is how he debuted. But this one is definitely more akin to the character he plays in the Crotons than it is to the characters he plays in the War Games and The Brain of Morbius. And he's strong enough and plays it well enough, but it's not much there really with the character. Another interesting character is Romdut, who's played by Glyn Owen, the gunrunner. You do get the feeling that some of these characters are kind of just plot devices. They don't have much character here. It's like it's get a sense that this whole script is kind of last minute rewrite a little bit, or it's maybe not as strong as it could be in some of the ways it works. It's not very well written, the role of Romdot. He's there as a plot point, he's there as a purpose, and he's okay, but it's not the most ideal characterization, but Glyn Owen does a decent job of it. I've got three more to go through. I've got Ranquin, who is John Aberneri. He plays a decent head of the tribe, very religious character at the end of it. He's really supportive of Kroll and is like the high priest kind of idea of their society as well. It's played with a kind of reasoned refinement, but still a man who's got primitive tendencies, I suppose the polite way of putting it is, although that's really not a really glib generalization. But it's not badly played by John Aberneri. Again, this character isn't really fleshed out as much as the others. Thorn, the Doctor, and Romana are really the only characters who've got any meaty connotation to them, really. I mean, it's a slightly glorified plot point from Ranquin, but he serves a purpose. He is the representative of the Swampies and makes a decent job of it. There's two more. We've got Valak, played by Carl Rigg, who's kind of like the conscientious objector of anything that Ranquin does. He is effectively the second command of the Swampies. And it's played quite strongly by Carl Rigg, but there's not much to say about the character. One interesting casting is John Leeson, who plays Dugeen, who is the main technical guy in the refinery. I'm wondering if maybe that's a compensation for John Leeson because K9 can't be used that much in a swampy marshlands of Suffolk in the outside stuff, so they give him a character to play as well. And it's good to see John Leeson on screen and a character that is actually very good, and I quite like it. And John Leeson has had a couple of roles in Doctor Who where he's made visual appearances, and this is the second one he's done. And I actually quite like the wee character. It's a shame he dies when he does. But he is like the main man who's really intrigued about the whole situation with Kroll and the whole description of Kroll and how Kroll's working and how Kroll's been sneaky around the refinery and everything. And he is the window into the technical side for us of this refinery, really, and it's very strongly played by John Leeson. Looking at the plot overall, There are some good elements. I mean, the filming outside is really nice. I do like the fact they've utilised the swamplands in Suffolk that they filmed at, to get a good sense of a kind of marsh world. Nice use of technology with the hovercrafts in there, because really, if you think about it, that's probably one of the best ways of getting across these lands. And then you've got a canoe there as well, or kayak. I think it's a kayak. I can't remember which one's which. You've got a rowing boat that's used by the Doctor and Romana at various points throughout the story, which is interesting, and it's a nice little situation that's set up here on the outside, but the interior stuff in the base in the refinery is very basic. You do get the feeling that maybe the budget's starting to be stretched just a little bit, and you see that a lot more in the Armageddon Factor. I'll say no more about that just now. That's a spoiler for next time, but yeah, you can tell the budget's a little bit stretched. I mean, it's an industrial factory, but it's really two sets in a cubby hole, really. That's what it feels like. It really isn't the strongest design and set and planning and production for this. The interesting elements are Kroll. The visual effect for Kroll is absolutely interesting. It's kind of a split screen factor when he shows up on the horizon. It's an effective monster overall. It's the biggest the Doctor Who's ever seen. They measured it as about 2 miles wide or something, which is really big. And the fact that this thing's sneaking through the marshland and devouring swampies left, right and centre is really quite an interesting way of feeding, I suppose. There is that discussion in the plotline about the fact that the Kroll appears every 200 years or so as manifestations, and it's just about appearing again now. And the whole culture of the swampies and the way they worship Kroll, and how that worship society works with sacrifices and all the tribal elements that are in there. It's an interesting motif in the way it's worked, but it keeps you going, but it's kind of like a basic plot line. They're trying to make an adventure out of it. There are not really much elements I can really say too much in here. I said it was 2 miles. They're saying it's at least 1 mile in length, but that's still quite big, really, if you think about it. This whole sub-premise of the fact that the swampies were actually taken from Delta Magna originally onto this third moon, and then now they want to be destroyed again by Thorn so we can utilise the planet for this methane refinery, because they're refining the methane into protein for food for Delta Magnans, which is interesting. And refineries into protein comes up again. It was there in a Doctor Who review I did a couple of months ago for Revelation of the Daleks. That was the plot line for the factory work in the background in the subplot for that. It's interesting how it's just the base plot of why the survey team, why the guys from the refinery are there, and why but it's a kind of case of colonization coming in. It's got a parable to the American colonization of over the Native Americans in the 17th and 18th, 19th centuries in America and the USA, and the reservations they have now and everything else, and that kind of parable is interesting. Writing wise, it is a Robert Holmes script, so there's a solid base, but Robert Holmes's power for having two-handers characters is really not here in this one. He really is trying to cover all bases really quickly, and I have a funny feeling maybe they didn't have as much script as they wanted to. The reason I'm thinking that is because the episodes are quite short, most of them. Part 1's about a normal 25-minute length, but the other's about 22 minutes. And in each recap, there's at least a minute or minute and a half recap of what happened the last couple of minutes of the last episode. So I don't think they have the content really to go through the whole to do 4 episodes. I think possibly had 3 and a bit, and they had to try and stretch it to 4 because of the budget factor. So I think it was a script that really had some problems with it at the time, and it does show. It's okay, but it's definitely not a story you'd go back to. But it is kind of a take your brain out. You can enjoy it, but it's not the strongest or best. Dudley Simpson, very much basic timpani and 6-piece horns. There's not really much embellishment in it like there was in Android Zatara. It's very standard Dudley Simpson fare. Entertaining when it comes in. He's really just punctuating bits of the script, but to be fair, he's not got much to punctuate, so it doesn't come across as much. But it's directed well enough by Norman Stewart. He's obviously got a limited budget and timing to do stuff, and he does try his best to do as much as he can with it, and he is mostly successful of what he has to play with. But it definitely seems like a limited budget, limited script. It looks like they're starting to run out of ideas a little bit for this part of the season, and it doesn't seem to work 100% all guns blazing like the previous story did in Androids of Tara. It looks like maybe the second half of the season the budget was really gone on Androids of Tara, and potentially maybe a little bit of Armageddon Factor, although that's debatable, which you'll see in the next review. But yeah, I feel this is the poor man's episode, the poor man's story for this season, and it's reflected in my score, if I'm absolutely honest. I will give this story a rating of 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, so 3 TARDISes out of 5 is what I've given this story. How does it stack up with the rest of the stories in Tom Baker's era, and how does it stack up with the rest of the stories overall that I reviewed for the TV series, classic and new series? Let's have a look, shall we? So the power of Kroll fits in alongside Warrior's Gate, the Rebus operation, the Stones of Blood, with 3 TARDISes out of 5. Interesting how 3 stories of the Key to Time series have had 3 TARDISes out of 5 so far. Will there be a 4th one next time? Never know. At the top is still Horror Fan Rock with 4 TARDISes out of 5, and 3.5 TARDISes out of 5 includes The Ledger Hive, Full Circle, State of Decay, The Sunmakers, The Pirate Planet, The Creature from the Pit, and The Androids of Tara. Overall, there's still 2 stories with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are Time Lash and Sleep No More. And at the top, there's still 6 stories with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it for this Doctor Who review. Tell me what you think about the power of Kroll. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. The next video is actually on Wednesday, and it's the last of the Key to Time stories, the Armageddon Factor at 6 PM GMT. And then follow it with another Doctor Who review on the 20th of November. That's it from me for this video. If you want to help support the channel more, you can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/Deanstructor for as little as £1 or $1 a month. You can help support the channel. That's patreon.com/Deanstructor. I am back on Wednesday with the Armageddon Factor review. Until then, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you later.